Alright, so last time we started off in our archetypes. This chart will make more sense when we get towards the end. I talked about Freud and how Jung and how Jung went to study under Freud. And I called some attention to our differences between Freud and Jung. The big difference between the two is right down here, what it refers to parapsychology. Meaning that Jung was a materialist. And that's a very important point. As a materialist, again, he believed that there's no such thing as soul, spirit, anything like that. That he believes that the whole world, the whole universe actually is nothing but materialism. Again, that's going to matter a lot when we get to Socrates next. We're looking at the philosophy of Socrates. He's an idealist, which means that he believes that there is a physical world, yes, but there's also a whole spiritual dimension to the universe as well. When we use the word spiritual, people immediately start thinking about like religious undertones and all that, and it makes sense. But all we really mean about it in this context is that there are things that are non-physical. So, for example, anybody ever see a ghost before? Yeah, okay, I'd say a couple of people at least. And anybody believe in ghosts? Okay, there you go. So a ghost would be something that's non-physical. So if you believe in ghosts, then you're at the very least something of an idealist. Idealist with a capital I, not in the sense that we normally use it, like we believe in ideals of things, but it means that you believe in something that's non-physical. Freud was absolutely not that. He was a materialist, so he believed that we were only part of the animal kingdom, which means that we're more evolved than, say, turtles and chimps, but he believed that we had the same kinds of desires and motivations as the rest of the animal kingdom, which essentially was just a desire to procreate and make more of ourselves. So that kind of forms the foundation of Freud's psychology. Again, the problem with this is that it limits you, because if what you're saying is true, well then, yeah, you're going to be very good at it. But if it turns out that there is something that's non-physical or non-material, you would never recognize it, because you'd be hard set on the idea that it just simply doesn't exist. So, in this case here, Jung, however, is not a materialist. He believes that there is such a thing as that there is such a thing out there that's non-physical, that it's spiritual, it's soul. We'll leave it at that. So, because of that, Freud believed that all of our complexes came from our childhood trauma. Your God complex, your power complex, your inferiority complexes, all of these things that we suffer from, these neuroses, he believed that they all had this foundation in childhood trauma. Jung believed, yeah, there was childhood trauma that we experienced, but there was also the childhood trauma of your ancestors that you've experienced in this kind of a way. So, we went over the key concepts. If you were not here last time, make sure you get this stuff from somebody, because again, this is all going to be on the test. We looked at the story of Gilgamesh. We looked at the story of Noah, and I also cycled through other flood myths. So we have these flood myths that occur all over the world, and the point was that we seem to have like a general human recollection of this massive event having happened before. None of us have experienced it before, but we all still kind of live with the images of this. So that being the case, what that means is that when we think about flood, because it's part of these flood myths that the water was designed to cleanse humanity, to cleanse the world of evil and wickedness, now it'll start to make sense to you why it is that if you join a religion, for example, and you get baptized, why do they put you into water and bring you back up? There's a reason for that. The water itself has come to mean something that is more than just H2O. It has like a psychological significance to it, spiritual significance, a soul significance, whatever word we want to use for it. He points out that these are things that seem to permeate all cultures. In other words, every culture in the world has this idea of what water represents. How about like a forest? Like if I were to say to you guys, hey, let's meet in the forest, what are some things that pop into your head? Like, what are some associations that you make with a forest?
Python.
What's that?
Pythons.
Pythons?
Yeah.
Ooh. Snake, yeah, big pythons.
Probably like trails.
What's that?
Trails.
Trails?
Trees.
Trees? Yeah. And how about what about like symbolically, if I said we're going to meet in the forest? Spooky?
Scary.
Scary? Yeah. Don't bad things happen in the forest? Yeah, and that's because the forest forms the foundation of a lot of horror movies for this exact reason. Because I don't have to tell you, a forest is scary, okay? So write that down, and next time I say forest, I want you to feel scared. I don't have to tell you that. I just have to say, meet us in the forest. And even if you don't sit there and go, ooh, scary, spooky, the idea that there's still something in your psychology that says, I don't know if I want to meet someone in the forest. You know, we know bad stuff happens in the forest, you know? There's the old story about the guy who's walking his kid out to the forest, and they get up and and the kid says, Daddy, I'm scared. He said, well, why? He said, the forest is a very scary place. And the dad says to the kid, man, imagine how much scarier it is for me. I have to walk back alone. Because we know the forest is a scary place. Thank you.
Perfect example.
The question issue is, how is it that these cultures from all over the world can have these same experiences? And I pointed out that this graphic here was actually a really wonderful way of illustrating it. This is the world down here, it's the globe, but also imagine that, this is us, imagine this is you, and the idea is that these are the experiences of everybody who've come before you. And those experiences are locked up somewhere in your mind. And so I brought out this graphic, which pointed out that there are multiple, well, essentially this is the whole you, the whole being of you. This is your psyche. This is the stuff that's in your consciousness. These are the things about which you're aware. If I asked you, what day is today? What day of the week is today? Thursday. If I were to ask you something like, when you were 7 years old and you were on your first roller coaster, what were you thinking when you first got on? You might make something up and go, I was excited. But unless you actually do remember, you'll explain that it is down here. It's in your personal unconscious. These are the things that are personal to you, your personal experiences, but that you're not directly aware of them. So the way in which we become, the way in which we self-discover is we bring as much as possible from the personal unconscious up into here. So for example, if you are afraid of dogs, and you have no idea why, there's a very good possibility that you were bitten by a dog when you were a little kid. Now, if you can remember that event and bring it up into your consciousness so that you're now aware of it, like, oh, that's right, I remember having done that. I remember that having been done to me. Now you can deal with it. If you can't remember the event, and if you don't know why you feel the way you feel, then you can't deal with the event. So the idea is that you have to bring as much as possible from here up into here. And then you can deal with it. But also, you understand yourself better. You know yourself better. And knowing yourself is going to be the drive of almost all useful academics, all useful intellectual behaviors, is to know yourself, to know who you are and why. Now, down here, this real deep level, you've got this collective unconscious. And this is essentially like the person sitting next to you, take their personal unconscious, and then the other person's personal unconscious, and your parents, and your grandparents, and your ancestors, and some dude who grew up in Australia and died in Australia who you never met. All of those experiences come together like in this big reservoir, this big pool of unconsciousness, of unconscious memories, These are, I have a reference here as ancestral memories, things like that. So these are all the things that are not conscious but could be if you just kind of ask the proper questions. And these are the things that are, I have them identified here as universal psychic structures, which again, hopefully will make more sense as I explain it. So you've got your field of awareness, which is exactly what it sounds like. You're aware of the things about which you're conscious. You have this field of unconsciousness, which is these things down here. And these are the things about which we have to be made aware. And the whole thing together, that's the psyche. That's you. If you remember last time I used the example of driving a car. If you're driving the car isn't you. You can crash the car, and then you can still get out and walk around. Think of your mind this way. You are your psyche. You're not your body. Your body is the car in that case. You can lose your arms and legs and still be you. You are affected by your body in certain ways, but that's not actually you. Your psyche is the you. So when I say something like, I am Scanlon, that's a true statement. But when I say I am Scanlon, this is Scanlon. It's not just this, it's not just this, it's not just this, it's the whole thing together.